I want to talk about kind of your gaming background first. So what games have you played? What games do you still play right now?
So what I play right now is fairly limited. It's anything that you can kind of just like zone out on. And, it might just be just a random like Minecraft dungeons or, just something that, just kind of you kind of take your mind away from things, kind of just unwind. But I mean, I play League of Legends, Overwatch, Valorant, more so kind of the competitive esports titles. And I'm a long time League of Legends player, so I've been playing for about 10 years now. So I would always say that goes back a long way. So
cool. So let's talk about the company. I mean, what do you guys do? How do you guys make money?
Yeah, so we're a fantasy esports platform, like you mentioned. We look at fantasy as a whole as when it's applied to esports, what's been built to date is very antiquated and it's very much built for a different type of audience and a different type of fan, that is more kind of keen to traditional sports. You have kind of the daily fantasy platforms, you have traditional fantasy that, are focused on an experience that isn't really the same as esports. And the comparison we use is you look at kind of your typical fan that watches football. They're not actually football players. They don't play football regularly. But when you look at that within esports, 95% of the fans are actual players of the esport that they're watching. And so when it comes to fantasy, we're basically making it much more gamified, much more, centric to playing a game in itself. And that's how we really see fantasy as a whole. And we make money, through virtual currencies. We built our own virtual currency, economy. That starts to kind of tie in through gamification, allows users to come to Esports One, and they don't really have to like deposit $50 and pick and choose what fantasy contest they want to compete in. They can they can either just play for fun, play for free, or they can actually buy and exchange virtual currency that they can earn while playing fantasy. And that is how they actually make money. And we take basically a percentage of anytime those contests are going on.
Got it. So what would be like, I'm trying to visualize this. Let's say it's like a Fortnite competition. I'm just making things up. And then I want to bet on, I don't know, Booga, right? Like I know a traditional kind of NFL esports, or not NFL esports, NFL fantasy, or any of these types of like fantasy football or basketball, you're picking a team out. There's a draft and all that, right? So how does it work here? How do I pick who I want to kind of bet on?
Yeah. So you're not picking, we don't think traditional fantasy is really applicable to esports. We see it as much more, you're picking your lineup every day. You're picking your players either every day or every week. And we're also adding in kind of elements within the game. So not only are you picking, so for League of Legends, for example, they have 5 players that play against 5 other players. And they have like a top laner, a jungler, like they have all these different positions. And so our users will select from a roster that's within that league. They will select what players they want to be on their lineup within a salary restriction. So we set kind of a restriction based on the contest, and then we assign a value to each player. So you could think like the salary cap is $200,000, and every player will range from $10,000 to $80,000, and then you build a lineup with that. And where we start to kind of innovate on just the building of the lineup, and this is only one facet of it, is we start to incorporate some of the elements that are within the game itself. You start to, pick what characters are going to be played, and then you assign that to a player. And if that player plays that character, they get bonus points. You can start to add in, predictions during the game, who will get the first kill, what, objectives will be taken. And we start to make it a little bit more, we see kind of traditional fantasy is just a lot more of a crapshoot. It's a lot more, if you look at kind of the stats, the top 2-3% of people that play, daily fantasy, they win 90+% of the pots. And within esports, like imagine that was your experience playing Fortnite, is every time you came into a game, there was only 2% of the people that you're playing against always won, and you were constantly being killed. Well, we look at fantasy in the same way, of making it just a lot more geared towards the actual fans themselves. And so that's where we add in these elements. The underlying kind of skeleton of fantasy is still there, the building of the lineup, the picking, within a salary cap. But where we see the kind of innovation really going is you start to add in these components that are really more, keen to just what gamers enjoy, and that ties back into gamification, the achievements, the missions, and that's how we really see fantasy going. It's like an esport, of itself.
Got it. So I think a better way for me to is to not compare this to fantasy football or fantasy basketball. It's probably a better version of like a FanDuel or DraftKings, right? You guys are much
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And so I guess, what are you seeing? I mean, with the, esports is continuing to trend upwards, right? And I guess, what are you seeing right now? What kind of numbers can you share around how the business is doing? It could be growth rates, employee size, that type of stuff, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah. I mean, we built kind of an ecosystem within Esports One where, one of the first things we focused on is building, going to where gamers spend most of their time and starting to kind of build the tools and the, kind of the resources for them, and starting to build kind of, we take a very much a community first approach. And so, we looked around and kind of focused on, all right, where do gamers spend most of their time? Where do gamers, how can we go to that audience? And all, signs pointed to Discord. And so we focused on really building kind of that community around Discord, really starting to build we built one of the largest esports bots on Discord that allows us to, acquire not only users on our server, which, is a server with, thousands of users, but also other servers can install this bot on wherever they are. And then that allows us to have this entirely new acquisition kind of method that we do through Discord. That has allowed us to keep our retention, fairly high. So we retain, day 28, day 30, we're sitting at around 65, 71% of retention for new users that are signing up on the platform. Additionally, users spend, on average about an hour or so on Esports One. And that's from not only just setting your lineup, but also kind of the other tools that we provide them. We built out this massive stats and data database. Like, we provide all the research tools. When we look at fantasy, we don't want a user going to Esports One and then having to go to 3-4 other websites to research their team, research the players, figure out who they want to pick, all these other, elements that come with playing fantasy, either on a competitive or a social, construct. And so we want to keep our users on our platform. And so we've been able to keep a very steady growth rate over the past, 6 months, ranging from, 20%, 40%, monthly. It kind of varies depending on, if the leagues are active and whatnot. But our core KPIs, we focus on, obviously on growth, but more importantly than that, it's the retention, early on for us. We want the users that are coming back to Esports One, we want to make sure that they're staying with us and that they're enjoying the product, they're enjoying, the experience as a whole. And so we do a lot of the things early on that won't really scale, like when it comes to, talking to as many users, as possible one-on-one. To, every person in the company does live support. We're probably one of the only fantasy platforms that has, real-time chat, on the website, where you can, chat with someone from Esports One basically 24 hours a day. But yeah, I mean, it's our growth has remained steady, and we only support one game title right now as well. So as we start to, add additional game titles, we see that to ramp up even more.
Got it. And which game is that right now?
Right now it's League of Legends, and then we'll start to add Valorant next, and then Call of Duty and Rocket League will be kind of our next 3 or so.
Got it. So it sounds like Discord's a nice channel for growth, and maybe even a retention mechanism too. And I'd imagine word of mouth is pretty good on this. What else is working for you in terms of growth?
So the biggest thing that we found early on that kind of goes back to kind of my where I would say my strengths are is related around kind of content and marketing, and we focused on SEO. And to do so, we kind of started looking at what are the kind of the keywords within esports and fantasy that we could start to target, and that there's kind of a gap. And since we already have a domain that's eSportsOne.com, it helped us, really kind of move up into the rankings. And so, we get probably 45% of our users come from just organic search, on Google. We rank number one, for, a majority of, the, combinations of esports, fantasy esports, and so on. And so we see obviously a lot of growth from that, or a lot of, acquisition, just, organically, and word of mouth helps, but it's largely a combination of Discord, Google search, and then we partnered with a number of brands within esports, and that also helps with acquisition.
Got it. So now I want to talk about Clubhouse. So, pre-show, we were talking about how you do a room more or less maybe every night or so. And I want to talk about kind of, what you see in Clubhouse, what you've been doing there, because I can say for me, the first 2 months out of the year, I was spending maybe 30 to 40 hours a week on it. So it started to get pretty unhealthy. Now I've tapered it down to about 4 to 5 hours a week. So now my priorities are back in sync. So I guess, how are you looking at it?
I did the exact same thing. So I had the exact same problem of spending, and the thing with Clubhouse. So I started, I'm sure we were kind of joined the app around the same time. I was, joined kind of, I wasn't like the first, group, but it was still back when it was on, what's the Apple development, where you have to install. Yeah, test flight. So back when it was on test flight, and you had to install it from there. And so right when they opened up clubs, they didn't have clubs originally. But as soon as they did, I applied to get the esports club set up. And so I got the esports club set up. It allowed me to get about 20 or so invites. And so I started just inviting a bunch of people I either worked with or that were within esports. And I focused, early on, I focused on, all right, this could be a new resource for, just helping esports grow, like helping bring more attention. Because everyone that I'm speaking with on the platform on Clubhouse, during the early days, they were largely, no one knew what esports was. And I would probably say when I joined, there wasn't anyone within the esports industry on the platform at that point. And so it allowed, not only myself and for, my company to find like this new, way to kind of just like bring attention, to ourselves and kind of bring awareness, but also to help, foster a growing environment for the esports industry. And so we started to really look at, what can we do to help better, this industry that I've been in for 15 years. And a lot of that was around kind of the, the diversity inclusion side of it, bringing more attention to, people of all races and colors and sexualities being able to, feel comfortable coming into a room and talking about their experiences. And it kind of gave a new outlet for a lot of that. And I think that was sort of the, the onus early on, and still today, that kept me kind of glued to Clubhouse, every day, because I felt that it was actually doing something for esports, and I believe it did. And then from there, we've just started to grow kind of our, grow the presence on Clubhouse, having more shows, whether it's related to voiceover acting. We did Spanish and esports, so it's all Spanish speaking discussions. We do those every week. Like we have women in esports, and a lot of these type of just different shows. It's just help foster just a new community, like a new community. And I, for one, I don't know if you've had kind of the same experience. I've made, relationships, connections that I never, I never imagined, I'd be, that I would get these sort of results from Clubhouse, just the people that I've been able to meet and start to work with. And yeah, so, I've toned down the time I spend on it, but I also see it as sort of like, I'm not very good at Twitter. Like, I'm just not very good at Twitter. I've never have been. But I'm good at, I can ramble on about things for hours on end. And I feel like I feel like Clubhouse, provides sort of just a new form of, of audio. I don't know. Have you tried the new Twitter,
Twitter
Clubhouse
Spaces?
competitor?
Yeah, I've logged in a couple of times. Yeah.
Do you think that's going to be better than Clubhouse? Do you see that
I think the problem with so I love Clubhouse, but I think to me it's a feature, right? I think Facebook's obviously copied them as well. I think whoever has the users at the end of the day, they can just roll out any feature and cut the legs out from under Clubhouse. So I'm hoping that the time we spend in Clubhouse doesn't go to waste. So I hope they.
Yeah, I know.
But Twitter Spaces looks interesting to me. So. Again, but I feel like everyone's going to start to build out this feature. So
right, yeah, it's just a matter of time, and Twitter has the feature set, kind of the cool little integrations with Twitter and whatnot. So Well, we'll see, but yeah, I agree. Hopefully Clubhouse continues to grow, and it's done a lot for myself, for my business, and I believe for esports as well.
Do you think, I mean, from like, it sounds like what it's done for you is really, you've connected with influential people in the gaming world, and, from a kind of partnerships perspective, it's been helpful, but also just having those relationships, right?
Well, it's allowed. So the thing, like I was in a room yesterday that wasn't esports related. It was all, it was basically there's every night there's like a new startup pitch, room where people are pitching their startups. And I was brought up on stage, not as someone to pitch, but someone that kind of just like, they had all these investors on stage that were giving, investor feedback, but there was no one on the startup side, on the other side of the table, that was kind of pushing back whenever VCs were asking questions that, I've kind of experienced, whether it's, drilling someone on, telling them what valuation they're raising at and stuff. And so I came up on stage and I started basically taking the side of these founders that were pitching and kind of just advising them on, hey, like, make, these just little small things while they're pitching. And after that, I mean, I connected with, 8 or 9 people that reached out afterwards that do, have all these different companies and businesses and, within not esports, but just within these ecosystems that esports as a whole could take advantage of. Like one of them is related to health and nutrition. One of them is related to like skincare for men, which is an actual pretty big issue in esports. And they had no idea that was a problem. They had no idea, like they didn't think esports, they're trying to build a startup around skincare for men. And, and they didn't even think about gaming and esports being an option. And now this is like, and there aren't any companies that are really doing that in this space. And so I think that's what Clubhouse has done. The biggest thing for myself, and as well as the industry I'm in, is it's allowed us to kind of open up and start to bring in these new waves of innovation into the industry, and not just be solely reliant on the game publishers to build the foundations for innovation, but to start looking at these sort of these other sources of companies, of organizations, of tools that can start to help esports grow. And that's that's the biggest thing I've gotten out of it, is just starting to meet people outside of esports that can help our industry grow.
Got it. I love that. Cool. So I think, look, I'm going to continue to spend time in Clubhouse, just not as much. And I think it's probably the same for you. I think it's here to stay. And so just little touch points, right? You get to quickly decide whether like and trust someone. So I want to talk about something else that's fun that you probably talked about on Clubhouse too, but NFTs, where are you with NFTs? How do you see this all playing out?
So whenever NFTs are brought up in an esports room, everyone knows that is basically my obsession right now. I was actually thinking about it the other day, and I was, thinking like there hasn't been a new technology, whether it's blockchain like Bitcoin, but even just like, anything related to like new development, no code, or just like new development kind of code, code bases that has basically had me so just glued to researching, digging in, like really understanding what this can do and how, what the possibilities are as NFTs have. And so I've spent the past probably 3 or 4, months, understanding every element of NFTs. And as an engineer coming from engineering, like, there are a lot of things that I didn't understand, but I knew if I spent enough time, what I could learn. And what I see, the thing with NFTs is what we've seen with like Top Shot and, and some of these other platforms that are based around the Beeple, the $70 million, $69 million sale of art there. Those forms of NFTs, I don't, believe are going to really work within esports. I don't think there's going to be enough value in just purchasing, something that's more sentimental or something that's more graphics based or arts or video highlight. It's going to be more about the utility of NFTs. It's going to be a lot more about what can you attach to NFTs that add additional value or add additional access or, incentivizes gamers and users. The thing that, just to kind of say quickly, is the game publishers have already, basically all the big game publishers, they're not going to be supporting NFTs for quite a while. I don't believe 3-4 years, and so there's going to be a lot, and that means you're going to have a hard time building any sort of game game title NFTs that might be of a character or even one of their pro players, because they won't allow it. So you have to look at what are the other forms of NFT, capabilities, and utilities are what we envision, that being. And so one way we're looking at doing this is on the NFT front, it's allowing users to basically buy NFTs as like a premium service, premium subscription. So if you own a certain type of NFT that would give you access to, certain features or certain, Discord channels, and then you can essentially be doing things for, if you own that NFT, to increase, its level, start to add gamification into it, where, you can kind of, increase the value or kind of the properties of that NFT over time. And that ties back to fandom, that ties back to, like what you can do on various sort of fantasy platforms, or, like you'll start seeing teams start to release their own NFT as basically a membership token. And that gives you access to all these different giveaways. And so that's where our focus is looking at how we can start to incorporate the utility of these tokens and bring that to esports, but more specifically fantasy esports, start to create what we're calling kind of fantasy as a service. And I think that's an exciting part for where NFTs are going. It's, you run into a lot of there's a lot of still issues on the tech side right now that still have to be tackled, but the people we're talking to and working with, on the back end, we see some of those issues related to like gas prices and just the cost of minting NFTs and scalability. Those things will soon kind of be an afterthought in, a couple of months. And that's where you'll start to see it really take off within esports.
Wow, amazing. And so where can people go learn? I mean, how have you been researching about NFTs? Just for the beginner right now, where can they go kind of research?
So the best way is to go to our Clubhouse website, because we have a whole section on NFTs. There's a bunch of them out there. If you just go to esportsclub.house, then there's a section on NFTs that are in there, but under resources, I believe. But there's a bunch of good kind of repos. So there's a I don't know if you've heard of like Awesome List on GitHub, which are like all the different collections of different resources across all these different categories and businesses and industries. And someone recently put together this awesome list for NFTs. So if you just go on GitHub and search for Awesome List and then NFTs, there's a whole collection of just all of these different resources, and it's open source, so anybody can contribute to it. So I would suggest that, as well as our Clubhouse page.
Yeah, so the Clubhouse page is esportsclub.house/NFTs, and then there's all the resources on there. I didn't even notice that Mark Cuban wrote a blog post. I thought he hadn't blogged for years. So that's fascinating. Yep. So okay, great, that's cool. And I'm just curious, do you have any CryptoPunks?
So I don't. No, I never bought. Never got in one. I almost did early on, but I've gotten more into like checking out like Decentraland. And I have a couple of Top Shot highlights, but yeah, no CryptoPunks. Got it.
Do you think you'll ever get one when the price drops?
I don't know if the price will. I mean, I don't know. Do you have one?
Well, I almost bought one. So it dropped. I mean, a couple of weeks ago at the 26. I was like, okay, should I buy it at 26? And then like I just like I couldn't justify it yet. So it'll probably stick on my side.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, if it keeps going down, maybe I will. We'll see. I don't know. Like for me, so that goes back to the whole like NFT and like Top Shot things. A lot of people are buying these items, these NFTs, as an investment. And if that's, that is going to be much harder to do within esports. Like you look at those sort of things, you're not buying it for any other reason than, you want to own it with the hope that it's going to turn around and be worth more money so that you can sell it. Right. I mean, maybe, some people have like a different mindset to that and they have a bit more of a sentimental value, but that is sort of how I see a lot of kind of the ownership of NFTs is it's a commodity investment. And until that starts to shift a little bit more to the utility side, that's when esports will start to, take advantage of it.
Got it. I love that. All right. Well, let's work towards wrapping up here. 2 more questions from my side. What is your favorite business book?
So I have a couple of, so I've been reading, the last one I've been reading here is, Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. It's really good. I'm old schooler, so I go back to kind of hard things about hard things is a good one. But I started listening to recently the story of Silk Road, and I think it's called American Kingpin.
Yep.
And there's a documentary or there's a movie that came out about it recently too. That is just a fascinating story. So those would probably be the three I've kind of been reading the most. It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Cool. Favorite business tool?
So the normal ones, Monday, Notion. I love Coda. I check. I'm a product hunt, geek every day. I'm checking product hunt, Hacker News. I sign up. Reason my email. I'm constantly having to unsubscribe from mailing lists because I'm always signing up for new apps, and they're constantly just sending me, email after email. And so there's a couple of them that I've stumbled upon recently. Digits is really good as a financial planner for businesses. It's incredibly good, and they just got backed, I think, by Andreessen recently. Did a big round. Pitch.com is really good for building out like presentations and doing decks and anything, not having to deal with like Google Slides. So I use that a good bit recently, and then Figma, Notion, Coda, the whole swath of those. And then the last one I'd say is I'm a bookmark kind of. So whenever I stumble upon a website and I want to make sure I can find it again, I don't necessarily save it to Notion. I save it to Raindrop, which is kind of like it's a bookmark, just a really easy way to save collections of links and websites, and then I can easily share that with my team. I think there's actually a link on our Clubhouse page of that's like a collection of Raindrops. So yeah, I would say those are my big ones that I use a lot today.
And is that digit.co?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'll check that out. You said you use it for
business? Yeah. It connects to your QuickBooks, all of your different kind of accounting software, and then it not only notifies you when things kind of look out of sorts, but it has all these kind of financial planning things that I use during board meetings. I just pull from Digits, and it basically makes QuickBooks and all the other pieces of keeping up with all of your books and numbers and financials. It just makes it much easier and provides information that's actually valuable.
It looks like it's both a personal and a business app then?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, it does both. I connect for both.
Amazing. Well, we're gonna drop this all into the show notes. But Matt, this has been great. What's the best way for people to find you online?
Yeah, so I'm on Clubhouse, Matt Gunnin. Check out Esports One. That's we just got Esports One on Twitter and Instagram. It was Esports One Inc. and INC, and we just got both of them recently. So just check out Esports One on Twitter and Instagram, and yeah. Also want to say congrats on the book, by the way, on the book release.
Appreciate that. All right, Matt, thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks, Eric.
Don't forget to check out the next video over there, okay? Over there. And before we go, open a new tab, levelingup.com, to learn more about the book. We may or may not have other goodies tied to this book, all right? Levelingup.com in a new tab. You can check out the next video first in a new tab, and we'll see you later.